Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we're continuing our voyage through the Elder Scrolls series. We've talked about Oblivion, we've talked about Skyrim, we also have talked about Morrowind, but now I need to cross an item off the list that maybe many of you aren't thinking about at this moment in time, but you should be, and that is Elder Scrolls Online. I say should be because before all of this, we ranked all the Elder Scrolls games here on Retro Rebound. And I put Elder Scrolls Online in the S tier with zero shame, although many of you would try to make me feel that way, but I still stand by it. Today I'm here to answer a question. Is Elder Scrolls Online worth it in 2025? And there's no better time to be talking about that than right now, thanks to the release of the Oblivion remaster. And there's two ways of approaching it, right? Maybe you played it and you're like, yeah, this is nostalgic, but I'm kind of familiar with this. I want something new in Elder Scrolls. As a diehard Fallout fan, that's what happens to me in Fallout 76. I go back, I play Fallout 3 or New Vegas for the millionth time. I'm like, that was amazing. But man, what would I do for something new? And then I find myself playing 76 and just giving it like the 18th chance in its lifetime. The other angle is you love Elder Scrolls. You've played all these games before, but you haven't kept up to date on Elder Scrolls Online. You've always been interested in, here comes my video in your algorithm, and you're like, hey, you know what? I am a little curious about that. I could do a little bit more consistent Elder Scrolls in my life. Well, boy, do I have good news for you, because I got a lot of good things to say about this game. If you're new here and you're into nostalgic or retrospective content, I swear to God, this isn't an Elder Scrolls channel that we've talked about a lot. Consider subscribing. Let me start off at the top level. Elder Scrolls Online is one of my favorite MMOs ever. It's right there next to RuneScape, and it's right next to Star Wars: The Old Republic. These are really weird choices, probably outside of RuneScape for many, because the most popular picks I've seen are like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. Admittedly, I'm almost done with the Realm Reborn in Final Fantasy XIV, and definitely not favorite MMO of all time status yet, but we'll see as I get into the DLCs where apparently it really takes off. But there's something to be said about a game taking like 50 hours to take off, but I digress. What you can likely tell from my MMO taste is I like two things. One, nostalgia, spoiler. Number two is, of course, storytelling. And I don't think Elder Scrolls Online really fits into the storytelling one as I'll talk about, but Old Republic certainly does. That game is awesome in its presentation, its storylines, its choice and consequence. I have such a fun time playing it for that reason. I say all this because I am not your typical MMO player, and why I think I'm a good fit for people who are like me and just want to know like, hey, I want more stories. I want more vibes. I want more worlds to explore. I just want to do PvE content. That's the type of player I am. Elder Scrolls Online has a full-on PvP mode where you can fight in wars. I've tried it before. Did not hook me at all. So like I said, I'm there for the stories to experience, the worlds to explore, and earning cool loot while I do it, which is much of what I do in the mainline series, and I think ESO offers that. And when ESO first came out, I think many of us saw its potential. I remember covering it heavily, but it was buggy, it was stale, and it was out of touch with its business practices in 2014. But 11 years later, I think the game is in such a great state. So let's unpack that a little bit. Like, why is it in a great state? Well, it starts off with there just being so few games in this industry that receive such consistent, great support like ESO does. Say what you will about Bethesda, but when it comes to their online games, they know how to hang, and they hang with them big time, and ESO is a perfect example of that. They hit noteworthy locations. For example, Vardenfell, which is Morrowind, and nailing things in the architectural detail that I think are just little but appreciated and give it that ounce of nostalgia that the game otherwise wouldn't have, where you go into a crypt in Morrowind, you're like, oh, this is like when I played in 2003. Very similar. Speaking of Morrowind and its expansion, something I called out in my review is how the game even nods to players who restarted constantly and were picking different birth signs each time. And the guy says in the dialogue, like, yeah, they're just always showing up with different birth signs and trying to change them even after they've been registered. It's strange. And so I just think little nods like that, there's a true respect for Elder Scrolls here. And I think that's really rare with like online components to big and successful franchises. I just always feel and have felt for almost a decade now that Elder Scrolls Online has just flown under the radar in the terms of just thinking of the players and respecting the fan base that they all started out as, and understanding they were Elder Scrolls fans first and they had to earn the whole online portion of that. But an example beyond Morrowind, which was many years ago now, let's just look at 2025 as a whole. They released this whole roadmap, and there's Seasons of the Worm Cult Part 1 and 2 that are outlining a pretty big year for ESO. This is important to note because they're actually picking up the main storyline from 2014 and continuing it in this update. So it's a great time to actually be picking up ESO, but I think the interesting part is it's always been a good time to, because the game is getting annual support And a lot of these are released in chapters. So if you bought Elder Scrolls Online Necrom in 2023, you'd get access to the base game alongside Necrom and all the previous chapters, which would hit areas like High Isle, Blackwood, Greymoor, Elsewhere, Somerset Isle, Morrowind, and so on. And this is just something that Elder Scrolls Online has done extremely well since Tamriel Unlimited in 2015. So for a little bit of backstory, and those who are unaware, Elder Scrolls Online launches in 2014. It's very buggy, it's very stale, but underneath it, you see a lot of potential. Like, this could be something great, but one of the biggest problems was a subscription fee. I fought against that adamantly, and many others did as well. It just felt like it was aging out of the industry, and Tamriel Unlimited comes around in 2015, and they're like, we're relaunching it, we're doing consoles, and we're also getting rid of that subscription fee. One of the best decisions I've ever seen a company make, because right there, flips the game on its head. A year later, they come out with one Tamriel. This is important for those of you who maybe have a friend who plays Elder Scrolls Online. Maybe they're really far ahead of you. Guess what? It doesn't matter. With one Tamriel, they can join you in your content, you can join them in theirs, and you can just experience the game as a whole together. Given how much content there is here, and as you've seen me outline it, there is a lot. It's very intimidating to jump into at times for people, but it makes it a lot more straightforward when you know, oh, you don't have to do this, this, and that to play with someone. You can just play together instantaneously. But if there's any single point I could get across in this video, it's that I think Elder Scrolls Online is just insane bang for your buck. And you can check my old videos, my Mr. Matty channel. I was saying this before Elder Scrolls Online was available in Game Pass, right? I was saying this for a while, but the fact that it's in Game Pass makes it easy to try. But when I outline the base game, Tamriel Unlimited, all those expansions, right? Like Necrom, which is a new class as well, High Isle, Somerset Isle, Morrowind, like this is like 30 plus, 40 plus hours of content pieces over and over and over again for $20. You can just get the base game alone. Zero strings attached, no subscription fee. It's just buy and play. I just feel like it's practically unheard of. There's always some hook. And no doubt, ESO has its own set of monetization, a subscription service if you want. There's a cosmetic shop, of course. And then these annual updates, like it makes its money. But I think if you're like a PvE player, such as myself, this is just such bang for your buck. You're not even gonna think twice about it if you really get into it. My favorite update will always be Gold Coast. That's where I really felt totally in love with what Elder Scrolls Online was doing, because every expansion or chapter they do is typically geared around like a faction or something happening in the world of Elder Scrolls. It's geared towards something gameplay or story-wise. In the case of Gold Coast, it was about the Dark Brotherhood, and it had a lot of stealth-focused missions. But more so than anything, I was just very surprised by how fun the stealth was in an MMO. Like I was sneaking through houses, I was lock-picking things, I was stealing things, and otherwise I was stabbing people to death with the Blade of Woe. And it was this unreal amount of gore that I wasn't expecting, like throat slitting, it just crazy amounts, more stealth than I'd use in a typical Elder Scrolls game, right? Like they don't have these stealth takedowns. You just have stealth archer from a mile out who, when you shoot someone, everyone looks around like, where, what? And, and that's all you get from the NPCs. But it felt pretty good in this game. But I always remember that moment of being like, man, this is just awesome that you can even do these things in Elder Scrolls Online. And I don't think you have to be like, I'm not a lore junkie with Elder Scrolls at all. So you don't even have to be on that level. Just you can have like the familiarity of like, there's a mages guild, there's a fighters guild, there's this, there's that, there's the Dark Brotherhood, and you can get by. Like if you just have Skyrim level knowledge, like that's your main Elder Scrolls game, you can totally get into ESO. And that's the other thing I wanted to really get across here for those of you who are looking into Elder Scrolls Online. It is a great way to get into Elder Scrolls. That's why it's also in my S tier ranking for all of Elder Scrolls, because it very much respects Elder Scrolls, not just in, I think, the way the stories are told and the places you go to, but really the way it plays. It's number one, very much open world feeling. It does have a little bit of that sense of wandering, not to the level I think of Bethesda Game Studios proper in a Fallout game or a mainline Elder Scrolls game, but you definitely get to see markers on the map, and there are just straight up side PvE dungeons that exist in this world that have no side quest line relevance. You just wander to them, you go through, you get a reward at the end, and it's just a fun little delve. To me, that's a lot of the Elder Scrolls experience, is just plundering these crypts, these tombs, these caves for loot. Of course, they have ones that are more co-op driven, ones that are more raid driven, that sort of stuff, more group oriented activities. Those are also really fun. But that just sense of openness and ability to wander anywhere is very prevalent in this game. And I think that was really goal number one with it, was to achieve that feel of an Elder Scrolls game. The other thing that they did really well was allowing you to play Elder Scrolls Online how you would typically play a mainline game. I don't play Elder Scrolls in third person. I sometimes wander in third person to see my cool armor sets. And in a lot of MMOs, you're always in third person, but this game lets you go into first person, which is how I primarily play Elder Scrolls. You'll find yourself in combat getting into the thick of things in third person because that's just how you have so much awareness of what's happening around you. It is MMO combat at the end of the day, although I'll talk about in a moment here. It does still remind me a bit of traditional Elder Scrolls. But that first person, those animations, spell in one hand, sword in another, the way it works, it just, again, it feels very Elder Scrolls. So that transition makes it really easy for current fans coming in. I think that was an important part, reducing that friction. But as I was saying earlier, for those who are new fans, you've never played Elder Scrolls before, or you can't really get into it, ESO is perfect for you. My wife, who only played Oblivion, had got really into ESO with me for a while. We had so much fun. It was like our go-to co-op game for months. We had such a blast with it, and that pulled her deeper into Elder Scrolls. And so I use that as a touchstone for a lot of people who are looking to get into Elder Scrolls. I somehow have friends in my life. I am married to a person who hasn't played Skyrim yet, so like it's like a game that I always feel like everyone around me has played because probably what I've grown up in, that environment. I've been making Bethesda content since I was 14, 13 years old. So I'm just so used to everyone I talk to. It's like, yeah, you've played Skyrim, right? Like, yeah, you've played Elder Scrolls, but there's so many people who have yet to. And ESO is a great entry area that I don't think cheapens the Elder Scrolls experience. The combat, again, more MMO than Elder Scrolls, but Elder Scrolls was always arcadey to me. So it still kind of feels Elder Scrolls-y in that way. The music, it's not Jeremy Soule level, but it does feel very Elder Scrolls. And I think the last thing, if those of you out there have felt particularly scarred by Fallout 76, no offense to that game, it's done a great job turning things around. But if you felt particularly scarred by that game, you're like, man, it just feels weird roaming a wasteland and seeing other players active and just jumping around. It breaks my immersion. Fallout is a very particular world like that where there should be other people inhabiting it, but those encounters should be scarce. And 76 can't get around that. You just have to accept that, yeah, it's not the wasteland you remember. This is a very active wasteland compared to the other wastelands you've been in. But when it comes to Elder Scrolls Online, I don't think it has that problem at all. Elder Scrolls is a living, breathing world. And so when I see players running around, riding on horseback or some flaming mount or whatever the hell it is, like just something crazy. I saw like a horse with just nothing but bones and fire. I was like, okay, sure. It's Elder Scrolls after all. But seeing a world this densely populated works better for Elder Scrolls. So it also doesn't break you out of your experience when you see other players, which I know is something that we're all very particular about. And so ultimately, it comes together for what I think is a really fun time still nowadays. Again, I'm just coming from the, if you will, casual perspective. I think there are a ton of people who play MMOs like me who are just more in it for the PvE. I can't speak to things like endgame and PvP and best builds and broken builds. And it's like, at a certain point, without sounding too loosey-goosey about it, I kind of don't care. It's like, can I get more Elder Scrolls? Can I explore these worlds? Can I quest more? Can I make choices? Can I do all that? Cool, I'm in. And so you get a lot of that here. You get a lot of the random exploration, like collecting these shards that give you skill points, using these skill points to create your own build. And so the too long didn't read is just this. If you are looking around and you just want a tidal wave of new Elder Scrolls content to come your way, ESO is your place. It does not, in my opinion, shortchange you on the true Elder Scrolls experience, and it gives you hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content for one price. You don't got to sign up for any subscription fee. It's insane to me that you can still buy this game in its base form for as cheap as you can. And even if you look at the price for like newer chapters that, bring in all the old chapters, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think one of the best things you can do is either A, try it on Game Pass, or B, wait for one of the game's extremely frequent sales to then grab it. And once you dive in, you'll just have all those chapters. I can promise you, just based on what I know about MMOs and burnout and stuff, you're not going to churn through all of this immediately. I speak as someone who's not trying to come across like a daily Elder Scrolls Online player. I'm trying to speak to you as someone who just has been able to dip in and out of this game over the past decade. As someone who just comes in, pops on that new expansion, plays for a little bit, pops out for a few months, comes back, finishes the expansion. Like, that style of play is what I'm about. And Elder Scrolls Online enables that a lot. Like, it's a very self-aware game is how I define it. Like, it's a very, very much self-aware game of sort of how you're going to interact with it. If you're like me, and it's like, it's never going to be the substitute for ES6, but I still adore it. I still think it's a great time. I still love inviting people into play. I still love starting a new character and being like, I'm going to trick myself into thinking I'm going to put like 500 hours into it this time. But really, that's my experience. It's just dipping in and out of it over the last 11 years now. And it's been such a journey, but they've really continued to pick it up. And the rumor has been that ZeniMax Online Studios is going to make a new MMO soon. And I'm so curious what they're going to do with all that they've learned through ESO, because ESO continues to do well. It's 20 plus million players, I think nearing 30 or something crazy like that. It continues to make a lot of money, and they're going to go and try to do another MMO on top of it, which is insane to think about. But this game just does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. And I just appreciate how, again, just consistent content where if that's something you care about, I already talked about all the past content you get, and you'll spend forever working through that. But if you catch up, want to play more, they'll probably have more for you within like the next year, because they just, again, they're on like a great schedule here. There's always something happening in this world. So I'm a huge fan of ESO, got a lot of love for it, a lot of love for ZeniMax Online Studios. I think they're a great team. And so just wanted to put some love out there for ESO. I know it's easy to talk about the mainline games, but wanted to shine a little light on this one here. I do think it's worth it in 2025. Let me know your time and experience with Elder Scrolls Online down below. I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.